A social dilemma is a situation that produces conflict between the interests of the individual and the interests of the group. So, by exploring social dilemmas, we can gain a better understanding of how competition and conflict arise. And by studying these situations, we can learn more about the underlying factors that drive human behavior in challenging circumstances and ultimately use this knowledge to promote more positive outcomes in the future. The first social dilemma I would like you all to take a look at is this one that's discussed by Ted Ed, which is known as the tragedy of the commons in this link here. Now, the tragedy of the commons is a classic example of a social dilemma, and this dilemma occurs when short-term actions benefiting individuals harm the long-term welfare of the community. A shared resource is depleted due to overuse and individual self-interest negatively impacts the group. So consider a scenario in which individuals have access to a shared resource, such as a common pasture or fishery. If everyone acts in their own self-interest by taking as much as they can from the resource can become depleted, and everyone suffers. Therefore, competition arises as individuals vie for limited resources. But this scenario can occur because individuals may only consider the immediate benefit of taking more from the resource, and they do not consider the long-term consequences of their actions for the group as a whole. It is this self-interest that leads to conflict when the collective resource is depleted. Ranchers' actions harm one another, creating a paradox in this case. And the tragedy of the commons exemplifies how unchecked competition can escalate into conflict over shared resources. Interestingly enough, concerns of the greater good are rather salient for Generation Z, those that have been born between the mid-1990s and the early 2010s. They have grown up in an era of rapid technological advancements and social media proliferation. This generation is passionate about social justice, environmental sustainability, and resource management issues. They're highly engaged in activism and advocacy efforts both online and offline. And Gen Z emphasizes the importance of collective responsibility, sustainable resource management, and equitable distribution of resources to ensure the well-being of all individuals and communities. They seek to create a more just, equitable, and sustainable world through collective action and systemic change. And everyday examples of tragedy of the commons being exemplified could be things like traffic congestion. When a wreck happens and everyone starts rubbernecking, and the bottle effect occurs, or the overuse of groundwater leading to groundwater depletion. Now, when's the last time you can recall charitably giving to someone or an organization? Did you hesitate before donating? Did you maximize your donation, or were you a bit tight purse, as we would say? Well, the contributions dilemma, also known as the public goods dilemma, occurs when individuals face a situation where they can choose to contribute to a good that benefits everyone in the group. However, they may also choose not to contribute and still benefit from the good. In competitive situations, individuals often prioritize short-term self-interest or long-term collective benefit. And when competing for limited resources, such as promotions or funding or recognition, people may hesitate to contribute fully due to immediate cost. Several factors can influence individuals' decisions to contribute to a public good. Some studies suggest that wealthier individuals may be more likely to contribute, while others suggest the opposite. Age has also been shown to be a factor, with older adults generally contributing more than younger adults. Social norms, such as the expectation of reciprocity, can also play a role. Additionally, factors such as greed, fear, and exploitation, and the specific context of the situation can all influence individual behavior. And this creates a tension between individual and group interest. The effects of this dilemma intensifies when resources are scarce. Participants vie for their share, potentially leading to conflict. Furthermore, zero-sum thinking fuels conflict due to less contribution, due to short-term costs, leading to harmful and negative overall outcomes. For example, imagine a neighborhood that needs to raise money to maintain a community park. Individuals may hesitate to contribute money if they believe that others will not contribute, even though everyone in the neighborhood can benefit from having a well-maintained park. And the next social dilemma we're going to look at is the prisoner's dilemma. So take a few minutes and watch this TED Ed clip that explains this dilemma. Now, the prisoner's dilemma provides insights into the relationship between competition and cooperation in society. In this social dilemma, two individuals are placed in a situation where they must choose to cooperate or defect. If both individuals cooperate, they both receive a moderate reward. If one individual cooperates and the other defects, the defector receives a high reward. And if the cooperator receives the cooperator receives a punishment. However, both individuals defect, they both receive a low reward. So the dilemma lies in the fact that the best outcome for each individual in terms of maximizing their own reward is to defect, regardless of what the other individual does. However, if both individuals defect, they are both worse off than if they had cooperated. And in this dilemma, loss aversion may lead individuals to defect to avoid the perceived loss of a longer prison sentence, loss of limbs, or any sort of self-interest, and fear loss can hinder cooperation. The prisoner's dilemma can be applied to a variety of real-world situations. For example, it can be used to understand how countries might cooperate or compete on issues such as trade or nuclear arms reduction. It can also be used to understand how individuals might cooperate or compete in the workplace, such as in situations where employees must decide whether to share information or resources with each other. So consider the scenario. You and your college roommate, who's also maybe your best friend, are both struggling in a challenging course. The final exam is fast approaching, and you've heard rumors that the professor will curb the grades. And you have two options. You can collaborate with your roommate or study independently. But here's your dilemma. If you cooperate, if both of you and your roommate collaborate on studying, you can share notes, quiz each other, and cover more material. Working together can help you both perform better on the exam. However, you'll also be competing against each other for the curved grade. Alternatively, you could defect and study independently. And so if you study independently without your roommate's help, you won't risk sharing your knowledge. You might actually miss out on valuable insights or study strategies. But if your roommate collaborates with others, they might then perform better than you. And so the tension that exists is that you want to maximize your individual grade while also helping your roommate succeed. They face the same dilemma. If both of you collaborate, you risk competing against each other for the curved grade. So I'll leave you with thought. What do you choose, collaboration or independence? So in section 3, we've explored social dilemmas and their impact. We defined a social dilemma as a situation that generates conflict between the interests of the individual and the interests of the group. We discussed several types of social dilemmas, including the tragedy of the commons, which occurs when individuals overuse a shared resource for their own benefit, ultimately depleting it for the group. We also examined the contributions dilemma, where individuals are hesitant to contribute to a public good, potentially leading to its under provision and harm for the group. And finally, we looked at the prisoner's dilemma, a game theory model that illustrates how individual decision makers acting in self-interest can produce less than optimal outcomes for the group as a whole. And so this wraps up section 3. Be sure to tune in to section 4 where we discuss factors that influence cooperation.